I want us to talk about the freight matrix for today. We have an article, and this article suggests that the Robinhood investors are actually influencing the performance of NAT over other shipping companies because of the large number of Robinhood investors that are in the stock. So I thought it'd be interesting for us to take a quick look. How big of an exposure do Robinhood investors have across these tanker stocks? I've done this up here for you. As you can see, the number of investors in NAT is huge relative to the other stocks. So, there may be some truth in there. There may be some truth behind Robinhood investors driving up the stock price. As we look here, NAT is up 9% for the last 3 months. Euronav is up 13%. DHT we would have thought would be up a lot higher. But look at the number of investors from Robinhood. There's still quite a few of them in DHT. So I would have thought that we would have seen a better performance by DHT, given that there's still quite a few Robinhood investors in that stock. I was quite surprised to see that almost 12,000 investors are in DHT. So that's interesting. So this really begs the question, how much does Robinhood investors really drive the performance of these stocks? Now there's some other ones in here that have big positions. Frontline is 12,000, and their stock is up 8% for the last 3 months, but still 40% down for the last year. So when you look at NAT being down only 10% over the last 1 year, it does beg the question, how big a position did Robinhood investors have in these stocks 1 year ago? And maybe that's the question I need to research next. If there's that many investors in there today, and the performance is so much better in NAT versus the other stocks today from a year ago, how big were those positions 1 year ago? So let me go back and research that now. Let me go find out, and let me add that down here. I'm going to add that down in here as Robinhood minus 1 year. All right, so that's what I'm going to do next. I'm going to go in there. Let me go find this information now, and then I'll publish this. Okay, I'm back. I've pulled up the historical data from Robinhood from a year ago, and then I put a 1 year percent change. And what we see is that Euronav and Teekay tankers were the two percentage-wise largest increases of shareholders from the Robinhood platform that own their shares from a percentage basis. So when we look at this, we could see that from a year ago, this one's only down, Euronav's only down 26%. And then we can see Teekay tankers is only down 15%. I think there is a statistically significant influence based upon the number of Robinhood investors over time. Now, NAT only up about 2,000%, but the number of shareholders obviously has come up significantly. And the other component that we could look at is the market cap. The size of the business is significantly bigger with Euronav. It's about 3 times bigger than NAT. So if the number of shareholders increases more for NAT, given its smaller market cap, that could have a bigger influence on the price. And this is just one data point. You always have to use lots of other means to validate a theory or thesis. But in this example, this is something for us to think about. If we look at the lowest percent return, it is Ardmore. And Ardmore also has the fewest number of shares, and their stock is down almost as much as the worst performer, which is Scorpio. Now Scorpio has seen about 1,000%, but still the stock is down 67%. So that does beg the question. I mean, given that this is not that different from Euronav, number of shares, but you can see the impact is different. And then of course DHT, twice as many shareholders, but the stock is still down 35%. So that makes me wonder, is this really having a big influence? Because I'm surprised to see DHT down 35%. It's a good question. I think it's something for us to consider. I mean, there's the data. Why don't you guys leave your comments down below? What do you think? am I seeing this right? Do you think that Robinhood investors are having a significant influence on the price of the stock? It sort of looks that way to me. If they were having such a large influence, I would have thought, of course this is only up 1,000%, I would have thought we'd see a better return from DHT. Now, if we look at the outliers, let's just look at this one. Scorpio is the worst performer, but still 1,000% increase of Robinhood insiders. So in my mind, it kind of tells me that they're not having that big of an influence. But then again, when you look at Ardmore, there's hardly anyone invested in it, and they're down quite a bit. So here's the thing is, the top performer in here is NAT. Over the last year, they're only down 10%, and look at the number of investors in there. That's a pretty big number for a small market cap stock. It's a third of the market cap of Euronav. So that does beg the question, do we need to look at this from a market cap perspective? Like, should we be analyzing the number of Robinhood investors relative to the market cap? This doesn't tell us how many shares they bought. So there is a component missing here. But we could look at it relative to its market cap. So why do I do that next? Why don't I add the market cap in here, and then let's look at what the influence is relative to the size of the market cap. So let me do that next. I've gone ahead, added the market cap in, and this is in millions, and then I've done a percent of the number of Robinhood shareholders, percent of the market cap. So I think the way to look at this is on a relative basis, like how big of an impact between the different stocks. That might be a better way to think of it. So with Euronav, because the market cap's high, it's a smaller influence compared to NAT. That's a third of the market cap. And so the larger position Robinhood shareholders have at NAT is a larger percent of the market cap, so it would have a greater influence on what happens with the stock price. So this seems to validate the thesis that Robinhood investors have some influence over the price of a stock. So I think we might want to explore this thesis, leveraging Robinhood shareholder data to find investments where they are starting to accumulate positions in there. I'll have to think more about how we might want to go about doing that, but that's definitely an interesting thesis to explore. So leave your comments down below. Let me know what you think of that. To summarize what we just did is we said, hey, there's talk about Robinhood shareholders influencing stocks, and this has been published recently, that institutions are paying attention to where the retail investors are going. We are challenging this assumption or thesis by looking at the actual data. So this is all updated as of the close today. So as of the close 30 minutes ago. And then this is the number of investors from Robinhood in each of these stocks. Then what I did is I looked at it from a year ago. So this is what the data looked like a year ago. And this is the percent change from year to year. Okay, so what we can see is the largest percent gain was really with Teekay tankers, percentage-wise, right? Because they went from 82 to 3,664. So percentage-wise, they had a big leap. Has not had a material effect from a year earlier. So leave your comments down below. I think it's kind of interesting. This is the percent of market cap represented by the number of shareholders. So don't confuse that with the dollar value of their investment. We don't know how many shares each Robinhood investor put into these companies. So we're missing a critical component. So one of the things we can look at next is that we can look to see how big a position the institutional investors have in each of these companies. So we'll do that one as a separate video. How big are the institutional investors in here relative to the retail investors? Interesting review. I'll obviously be watching the feedback comments down below and thinking through how this drives our research going forward. Thanks.